Step into a world of transformation and triumph as we unveil the captivating journey of Louis Vuitton, a visionary who defied the odds to forge a legacy that continues to dazzle the world even today.
Louis Vuitton has held the title for the world's most valuable luxury brand for more than a decade.
In 1854, when Louis Vuitton opened his first shop, he ignited a legacy that would span centuries. But how did he create an artisanal empire during the challenging mid-Victorian era? A legacy that's still thriving almost 170 years later? Let's dive deep into the remarkable story of Louis Vuitton and uncover what truly sets Louis Vuitton apart. Louis Vuitton was born into what is widely regarded as Britain's golden age in August of 1821. The world was rapidly changing and evolving, and life was not easy. The Industrial Revolution was in full swing, with large factories, steam travel, and mass communication all in their infancy. The slower ways of the old world were giving way to the faster, more aggressive modern age. Louis was raised in an artisanal family where his mother was a hat maker while his father was a farmer. His mother died when he was 10, and his father remarried shortly after. His father also died an early death, leaving him in the care of his cruel stepmother. Louis had a difficult relationship with his stepmother and realized very early in life that he was meant for the wider outside world. At 13, he decided to strike out on his own and seek the better life he knew he was destined for. He traveled nearly 300 miles from his hometown to Paris by himself, on foot, taking odd jobs along the way to support himself. He arrived 3 years later in 1837. The young man was awed by the drastic difference between his upbringing and the new industrial Paris. The city held such promise and breathed new life into his artistic dreams. Upon arrival, he took on an apprenticeship with Monsieur Marical, a local box maker and packer. Louis started out making trunks, and within several years, he garnered the respect of the upper class as one of the city's premier trunk designers. Trunk making and packing was a respectable profession at the time, with the majority of the clientele being traveling people of high class. Louis became rather skilled at customizing the box design and expertly packing the desired items for safe travel. His mother had been a custom hat maker, and Louis carried on the family tradition, carving out a sizable reputation around Paris, showing an astounding early affinity for the work. Considering the customer base for his line of work was typically the wealthy and powerful, it was not long before he began to rub elbows with the royalty of his time. In 1853, Eugénie de Montijo, Empress of the French and the wife of Emperor Napoleon III, commissioned Louis as her personal trunk master and packer. She was enamored with his skill and style, saying she admired his way of packing the most beautiful clothes in a quite exquisite way. This elite position would mark Louis Vuitton's official introduction into the world of high-class fashion. Louis spent several years working for Empress Montijo and becoming well acquainted with the high class of Paris and beyond. She raved to all of Europe about him, and the upper class came from all around to get their hands on his work. The re-established French Empire was a lucrative time for Louis. However, the revolutionary spirit of his time flowed through him, and over the years, the desire to strike out on his own once again crept up into his mind. The heart of an entrepreneur beat within his chest, and by 1854, he knew it was time for him to show the world what he was capable of. Shortly after getting married to his beautiful wife, Clémence Amélie Perriot, Louis left his current employer and opened his very first shop. The world did not know it yet, but modern fashion history was about to begin on Rue des Capucines. Louis's great-grandson would later say, in the blink of an eye, he exchanged the cloth frock and hobnailed shoes of a worker for the courting outfit of the day. The transformation was spectacular, but it required all the know-how of the store's department manager since Louis' shoulders were much larger than those of Parisian bureaucrats. At the time, Louis Vuitton was still primarily known for his trunk making and packing, and the shop advertised on a sign out front securely packs the most fragile objects, specializing in packing fashions. Travel at that time was primarily done by horse-drawn carriage, by boat, and most recently by train. Louis wanted to separate himself from his competition by proving that regardless of the mode of transportation, he could ensure the safety of the luggage he packed. During this time, most trunks were rounded to help keep water off of them during travel. In 1858, Louis noticed that the rounded trunks did not stack very well and would often make transporting them rather difficult. He noted that rectangular trunks were more practical, more structurally durable, and more fashionable than the rounded trunks that were common at the time. A fashionable rectangular trunk was less likely to get lost or stolen, since it was less likely to fall off or fall over during travel. He decided he would take the more rectangular design, make it just as waterproof as the rounded trunks, and add a certain level of chic to make it more marketable. The rectangular trunks were a smash hit. Vuitton's skilled craftsmanship in trunk making saw him create groundbreaking flat-top stackable cases that were both waterproof and light as a feather. The design was instantly the newest must-have item for Parisian high society, requiring Louis to move to a larger shop so he could meet the higher demand. This move also facilitated easier shipping and transport, as the new location was located right on the river and near a train station, meaning he could ship his trunks out directly as soon as they were ready. This original design, the Damier, was immensely popular and displayed Louis's keen understanding of how to craft lasting, fashionable items. The intuitive framework was a hint of things yet to come from the shop of Louis Vuitton. However, not everything was sunshine and roses. Difficult times were still ahead for him before Louis could confidently say he helmed a fashion empire. After the Franco-Prussian War, the demand fell sharply for his designs. Travel came to a standstill, and the immediate need for luggage followed suit. There were multiple reasons for the decline in travel. In some cases, rail lines had been damaged during the war effort. The post-war economy was also unstable, with many families from all walks of life being more cautious with their spending than they had before. High society and high fashion changed almost overnight, as the world moved into a new phase. Louis was no longer making designs directly for kings and queens on such a regular basis. He knew that if things did not change soon, the shop would need to downsize. As if to add insult to injury, tragedy then struck even closer to home. The shop was ransacked one night, with many of his tools and supplies being stolen, and the shop itself being almost totally wrecked. This signaled that it was time to start over. There was no denying that times were hard, but Louis was no stranger to tough times. His early life had taught him how to weather personal storms with dignity, and he wasted no time opening up a new shop. Returning to Paris, he immediately began looking for a home for the brand. The new shop was opened right next door to a prestigious jockey shop and was conveniently located near the Opera House and the Louvre. The new location was genius, ensuring plenty of foot traffic from his primary customer base and target demographic. Louis Vuitton would be visible and profitable once again in no time. This was a major shakeup, but it was nothing new for him. Change was not only the way of fashion, but the lifestyle of Louis himself. Throughout his life, he kept reinventing himself in new, interesting ways. He was always a designer, but the ways and fashions in which he designed were always evolving. He understood the ever-growing nature of fashion and trends. Looking back on his life, it seems like it was always his destiny to be in the fluid world of fashion. Given his personality and affinity for change, he was tailor-made for the industry. He never stopped dreaming up new ideas and fresh designs. In 1872, at the age of 51, Louis released the signature monogram design with a red stripe that would go on to be the calling card for the Louis Vuitton brand for over 150 years. He had an almost supernatural ability to look ahead and see not only what would be fashionable in the future, but what the specific needs of his clients and customers would be. Louis's designs are still legendary today, and they were even more impactful when they premiered. In his day, he was a mind-blowing designer, a true generational talent. Louis was also an astute man. He was a knockout combination of talented and intelligent. On top of being a world-renowned luxury designer, Louis built the world's first pick-proof lock. Knowing the danger involved in traveling with luggage, Louis decided to make it harder for passers-by to simply pop open a luggage lock and steal what was inside. Louis kept the print for each lock in his shop, and should the client need a new key, he would have their information on file. This kept his clients' belongings safe from theft and provided a sense of peace of mind during a global period of unrest and unease. No one could get into their trunks except them, and no one had the lock design except reliable Louis Vuitton. Later, with the help of his son, Louis developed a lock so impenetrable that Georges Vuitton challenged the famous Harry Houdini to attempt to break free from it. Louis Vuitton was a powerhouse designer basically from day one of his career. At a young age, he dedicated himself to his craft and became the leading name in his field. Many brands claim a long and storied history. However, few can trace their lineage back to such an influential individual. By the mid-1870s, Louis had established himself as the premier trunk designer not only in Europe but the entire world. His brand garnered respect and admiration wherever it went. The brand was recognizable all over, as far away as Japan. His work was sought after by the newly established high society. With the recent revolutionary periods impacting both governments and production, Louis kept a close eye on the needs and desires of high fashion. Often, he was able to stay ahead of the curve, anticipating changing trends before they even arrived. This made him uniquely qualified and skilled in understanding luxury fashion. Louis was able to adapt his designs to different needs and circumstances. He was able to determine not only what his clients needed in the moment, but how to meet those needs while implementing a signature, timeless style. He was famous for his ability to cater to a wide customer base, while still making his designs feel unique and personal. In 1885, Louis landed the grand prize of the fashion world. He was finally successful enough to open a store in London. Paris was certainly the reigning king of luxury, fashion, and high society. London, however, came in at a close second place. Now with shops in the two major societal hubs across Europe, he set about cementing his rule over the fashion world. After decades of imitation and attempted cheap knockoffs, Louis labeled all of his designs with the Louis Vuitton trademark in 1888. With the final innovation of his lifetime, he found a way to ensure conniving competition could no longer take advantage of his legacy. With his trademark, the Louis Vuitton name was finally just as safe from theft as his customers' belongings. By the time of his death in 1892, Louis Vuitton the brand had far exceeded anything Louis Vuitton the man could have dreamed. At that time, the mantle of the brand fell to his son, who quickly took his father's work and further built it into a worldwide phenomenon. The brand gained instant recognition and fame, being featured at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. The luxury brand somehow continued to grow after that, exploding onto the American scene with immense staying power. The brand continued to thrive through the coming decades, being passed down from generation to generation of Vuitton men for many years. When stewardship of the company came to Louis's grandson Gaston Louis in the early 20th century, the brand expanded into designing luxury leather items. With the help of Gaston Louis' son-in-law, steel magnate Henry Rockemer, the brand launched multiple stores all around the globe, further cementing its position as the world's premier luxury brand. The timeless nature of Louis' style is still evident, as the core structure of his designs remains today. Rather than being thrown out and changed entirely, as many luxury brands do over time, that style's been updated and modified for a changing world. The essence and elegance of the original designs endure nearly 2 centuries later, a concept he would be proud to see. Louis's unique ability to change and grow with the times, while also creating timeless work, is possibly the strongest legacy he could have left his brand. The Louis Vuitton brand is known today for its distinct style, catering to the ever-changing and growing needs and desires of its clientele, just as it did when the man himself ran the Parisian design shop. The storied legacy of Louis Vuitton has impacted the modern fashion and luxury industry more than possibly any other brand. In 1987, Louis Vuitton merged with Moet Hennessy to form LVMH, a Paris-based multinational holding and conglomerate. LVMH developed quickly into a trusted source of oversight. They continue to thrive currently, housing a collection of approximately 75 prestigious brands, including Tiffany's, Dior, and Bulgari. Today, the luxury brand has branched out into other elements of fashion and design, but they are still, in a way, best known for the items Louis made in the 19th century. The spiritual successor to 19th century trunks and boxes, their handbags and purses are highly coveted items by people of all walks of life. Earning nearly $23.4 billion annually and worth $436 billion overall, they have repeatedly been named the world's most valuable luxury brand. LV is a mark of status, and the world of fashion still relies heavily upon their foresight and intuition. Well over 150 years after the original shop was opened, Louis Vuitton is still leading the fashion world, one beautiful piece at a time. What do you think is the most important part of Louis Vuitton's legacy? We'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop down to the comments below and let us know your opinion. If you like this video, remember to check out the video suggestions on the screen right now. Thanks for watching. We can't wait to tell you the next exciting story.